Thank you for being here today. This is the work session of the Portland City Council. Today's date is Tuesday, the 7th of November already. Welcome to the start of our fiscal year 24-25 budget work session. As part of the fiscal year 23-24 budget council passed this last June, we included budget notes directing the budget office to update the city's 5-year financial planning process, centralize and coordinate citywide forecasting processes, and discuss utility rates and revenue bonds earlier in the budget process than we did previously. Today's work session is designed to be responsive to those budget notes, and we'll set the stage for the fiscal year 24-25 budget process by providing a shared foundation of knowledge about the city's financial state. In other words, we're level setting. We're going to be hearing the same information at the same time. It begins what I believe is a necessary shift in budgeting with a citywide lens, prioritizing our resources in a way that considers the financial picture of the city. The shift is especially important given the general inflation to existing costs, the sunsetting of federal one-time resources that have funded ongoing needs, as well as the elevated level of deferred maintenance. The demand for resources, as you're all aware, continues to surpass availability in the city. With that, I'll turn this over to the team at the City Budget Office to provide us with an overview of the current status of the budget. And if you wouldn't mind, just introduce yourselves as you speak. I'll hand this over to Director Grew and Deputy Director Levine. Thank you both for being here.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for that introduction. I'm Tim Grew, the City Budget Director, and with me is...
I'm Ruth Levine, the Deputy Director.
And perhaps we could just go around the table.
Sure, sir.
Yeah, sure.
Farshad Aladati, Business Services Group Manager, BES.
Danu Chiyama, Director, BES.
Gabe Solmer, Director, Portland Water Bureau.
Rebecca Esau, Director, Bureau of Development Services.
Peter Holzman, City Economist.
Jeremy Patton, Business Services Group Director, PBOT.
Millicent Williams, Director, PBOT.
Thank you very much. Can I have the agenda slide, please? I can't see the slide. Thank you. So today, we're going to talk about where we stand in terms of our financial planning going into the next fiscal year, and in some cases, even this fiscal year. So in terms of the agenda, Peter, our economist, is going to do an economic outlook for you, and that will be followed by the forecasting process and inputs, which will include the directors here and some of their staff. And then I will return to talk about some of the expenditure pressures that we're going to be experiencing during the year. And then we can discuss next steps. Next slide, please. Sorry about this. Just to add to some of the comments that the mayor made in his opening statement, this session resulted from a budget note approved by council calling upon the CBO city economist to convene a work group to coordinate and underline assumptions for forecasting revenues and expenditures for the 24-25 budget. That work group convened early in the fiscal year and has consistent with the budget note, prepared this presentation for council discussion. Today, members of the work group and their respective directors will participate in the presentation. The second work session that we are organizing is scheduled for November 12th, and that will focus on establishing council priorities to guide the budget process going forward. Last week, CBO distributed a letter to you, to your offices on the purpose of the work session, but also to provide you with a survey that we were asking you to complete, which we hope would be in our office tomorrow, so we can develop the trends that you're providing to us. And then we'll present the results of that survey at the work session on the 12th next week. Next slide. For this session, our goals are to give you a preview of the 24-25 financial outlook, to give you the assumptions that we are using for expenditure and revenue forecasts, and also to learn about how we do forecasting, and then to continue the collaboration after this meeting in terms of the financial planning process. And then we also want to highlight budget issues as we go through our presentations. Next slide, please. This is the budget schedule just through December. And as you can see, we have the work sessions up there, the 2 work sessions. We also have the mayor's budget guideline, which we hope to have out on November 22nd, and that'll provide the first directives or processes for how we're going to proceed with the budget. We also will be bringing to you next week what's called the CAL ordinance, and this is simply increasing the targets for general fund appropriations to be consistent with inflation and that sort of thing as we go into the next budget process. So we'll be providing more information to you on that very soon. And then the budget kickoff event, which we do annually with the bureaus, will be in December and be in conjunction with the December 15th presentation of the general fund forecast and also other fund forecasts at that time. So that's just a picture of where we're going to be going between now and December. And we'll be giving you a full budget process going through the entire fiscal year in the very near future. With that, I would like to turn this over to Peter for him to give you a picture of our economic situation in the city of Portland and probably nationally too. Thank you, Peter.
Peter Holtzman, city economist. You can go to the next slide. So I'm going to start with probably the most important indicator right now, which is inflation. And you could use any number of inflation indicators. I'm using the consumer price index for the West region. This aligns with what we tie to our cost of living adjustments. Basically, the trend has been positive since early mid 2022. You'll see that the top line number is down, and then the core number, which excludes energy and food, is also down and at a smoother rate. The reason they exclude that is the Federal Reserve's interest rate policies tend not to have as much of an effect over the cost of energy and food. And then there's something called the super core, which excludes shelter. And the rationale again is shelter is super long moving in how it's incorporated into the inflation, into the consumer price index. It takes a really long time to what we see in house prices to make its way into that index. And right now, we're still feeling in our inflation numbers the high growth that we had post-COVID in the Western region. What the counter of that is that we've seen negative housing price growth recently, and you'll hear about the development cycle and how fraught it is at the moment, and the impact of higher interest rates on house prices. And so there is the potential for the West region CPI to actually come down faster than the national average, which is a positive thing for our personnel costs, but not necessarily for positive reasons. You can go to the next slide. And so this has created somewhat of an interesting dilemma for the Federal Reserve because their tool, which is raising the federal funds rate, has a really long lag before it actually you can see the impacts of their policies. And so right now they're kind of getting to the point where they could go any number of directions. They could continue to pause the federal fund rate increases, which they have done, or if we get a series of good jobs reports that are showing a little bit of loosening from super hot job market to a more normal, strong job market, we could see them perhaps cutting interest rates earlier next year than you might have anticipated. Right now, the baseline expectation is that by the end of 2024, they might start decreasing interest rates, but then again, it's an evolving discussion as they get job reports and inflation reports. And it's a really delicate balance that they have to strike because a wrong move could either, bring back inflation or it could cause a recession. The orange line that I included on this graph is the mortgage rates. And the reason I included that is right now, the high, we're at a 30-year high, I believe, or 20-year high, and it's happened very quickly. And that's really disincentivized people to move. If you're looking at your monthly payment and it's X% higher to move, you're likely going to stay. And the other thing that it's really done is it's disincentivized development. Developers always want their projects to net out, and the cost of the borrowing is the biggest cost that they face. And so at the current moment, it's a very difficult time to sell to investors development when it's hard to argue on the revenue side and you have the high cost side. And I'm sure you'll hear more about this from BDS. Next slide. An indicator that I tend to look at in relation to the business license tax is corporate profits. And you'll see that they really jumped up between post-COVID to the beginning of last year. But since last year, they have flatlined. And this was anticipated. The rationale is that it's quicker to raise prices for a corporation than it is for your expenses to jump up. And so they raised prices in anticipation that they were going to have to pay workers more and things along those lines. And now we're finally starting to see their profit margins come down. FactSet reports the profit margins for S&P 500 companies. It was at 13% peak, which is pretty high, and it's now down to 11.6%, which doesn't sound like a big drop, but when you're talking trillions of dollars, a 1.4% drop is very significant. And you can go next slide. And so all of this together, right now, there's the question of the recession. And most baseline forecasts have removed a recession scenario from their forecast. Last year, somewhat famously, like Bloomberg had a 100% chance of a recession by October of this year, and that obviously did not come to pass. I serve on a couple of state boards, and what a recession means for Oregon is employment loss. And I was always a little bit skeptical that we would see significant employment loss when we had corporations that had such a tough time hiring people and also record profit margins. I thought we would lose the buffer of profits before they would start letting employees go. Now we're at the position where we don't have that buffer. We're at the kind of more historic profit margin rate. We are in a situation where the Fed is still walking that fine line where whatever they do could have serious policy implications. And I'm still holding my breath, is ultimately, I think things could still just as easily go wrong as they could have last year at the end of last year. So I guess the short story is nationally, we still have an elevated chances of a recession. Probably below 50%, probably makes sense to take it out of the baseline, but that again does not mean we're out of the woods. Locally, so this was more nationally. Locally, even though again, on the employment side, I'm not necessarily anticipating employment loss regionally, I think there's going to be a lot of recession-like stuff happening. And this will be in terms of development. We've already seen it's basically stalled out completely. Transient lodging taxes are that revenue source, and hoteling has basically stalled out. We've kind of reached any recovery we had from COVID seems to have stopped, and we're basically tracking exactly last year in that revenue source. And population, which is a huge driver for our long run growth rate assumptions. The last couple of years have been pretty bleak in the population numbers, and we will get population numbers in a couple weeks from the Population Research Center and in December from the census, and those will be looked at very closely in terms of what they mean. So next slide. This is, so I'm switching from more of an economic outlook to more of how the general fund process is for the forecast, and also a preview of what is likely to come in December. So next slide. And so the forecasting timeline is, during the fall, I developed the inflation factors. These are the inflation assumptions that bureaus use for developing their budgets. Put together the current allocation level targets, or CAL targets, and this is the ongoing portion of all general fund expenses. And so for special appropriation programs, for bond payments, and then for bureau budgets. All of that goes into the CAL targets. We're also developing the overhead model, which I'll talk more about on the next slide. And then the baseline revenue models. I'm updating those in anticipation of the December forecast. In December, we will release the CAL targets, the overhead model, and the December forecast, which will have available ongoing in one time or lack thereof. February, if there is either council action in terms of adopting a new labor bargaining agreement or something along those lines, or the cost of living the COLA forecast came in slightly different, I will update that portion of it and send it out to the bureaus and re-update my forecast with that expense. Come April, the tax filing date is April 15th. That's when we get the majority of our business license tax revenue, and also we'll have another quarterly utility license fee at that point. So I'll update the general fund forecast at the end of April. That tends to be the biggest adjustment because we get the vast majority of our business license tax revenue post April 15th. Next slide. The overhead model, and I anticipate you'll hear from the other bureaus about this on the expense side, but basically right now we're updating two parts of it. The metrics, which determine the cost allocation among bureaus, and then the total cost pool. And you put these together, and it charges out to all of the overhead paying bureaus a certain amount. That will come out in December. I'll preview it with them probably before then. And then what you may hear is that one of the difficult things for forecasting is, come the proposed and the adopted budget, a lot of times there are programs that are overhead programs that get added to the cost pool, which will be an unanticipated expense for these overhead paying bureaus. And so again, you'll probably hear more about this from the water and BES bureaus, and BDS. Next slide, and PBOT. To remind you where we are going into this forecast year, this is my April 2023 forecast. You'll note for fiscal year 24-25, which we're budgeting for, there is 0 available ongoing and one-time anticipated, outside of the 20 million set aside for Prosper Housing and Portland Harbor. Since this forecast, council has adopted and this is not unusual, oftentimes between forecasts, council will adopt either labor bargaining agreement costs or something that is deemed very necessary and crucial before the next forecast. And the two this time are the PFFA agreement, which is $2.5 million in ongoing, and the downtown business incentive, which is the $25 million tax credit to downtown businesses, which is not an ongoing expense, but likely a revenue reduction as we pay out the $5 million in tax credits per year for the next 5 years. Next slide. As I mentioned previously, in terms of inputs, the universal input is population. It may not have a huge impact on years 1 and 2 of the forecast, but years 3 and beyond, that is a big determinant of the growth rate assumption. But for each of the other revenue, of the big five revenue sources for the general fund, they mostly have different inputs. For property taxes, there's only three things we need to know to have an idea of how much property taxes we're going to collect in any given year, and that's the assessed value, the compression, and the delinquency rate. And by the end of October of each year, we have a very, very good idea of how much we're going to collect for that fiscal year. For business, and it's mostly based off of county assessor reports. For business license taxes, I showed you the corporate profits. There's also FactSet puts out reports based on the profit rates of different industries. And I'll combine those with IRS data that breaks down by industry, the payments that we receive by industry and corporation type. And so with those and with the composition of the revenue reports that I received from the Bureau of Revenue, that's how I come up with the business license tax forecast in the short term. In the long term, again, it's population, there's assumptions around income growth and things along those lines. For utility license and franchise fees, it's mainly looking, for the public portion of that, which is water and BES, we get it from water and BES. They know how much revenue they're going to raise. They know what they're going to pay us in ULF. For the private portion, which is PGE, Northwest Natural, Pacific Power, Comcast, things like those along those lines, the biggest thing that I'll look at is the scheduled fee increases, because that will tell me how much more revenue they're likely to receive in the next couple of years. For state shared revenue, it's the state forecast. It tends to be very accurate, and it's really, they don't do a forecast for Portland, they'll do a statewide forecast, and it's just about sharing it out to Portland's portion of that. And again, to remind you what state shared revenue is, it's mostly liquor. There's a little bit of cannabis and cigarette in there, but it's 95% liquor revenue. For transient lodging taxes, I'll look at Travel Portland provides STR data, which gives you occupancy rates, hotel price rates, things like those lines. And then I'll also look at Port of Portland passenger data. Next slide. So I'm going to take a little bit of a deeper dive into property taxes and business license taxes, because I think there's important trends that I should highlight. But first, a reminder on property taxes. One, the big thing is that the amount, if we didn't have Measure 5 and Measure 50, we would collect a lot more property tax revenue. But because we have Measure 5 and Measure 50, it is very hard to see a reduction in property tax revenue. And you can kind of see that on this graph where the Measure 5 market value or the real market value has fluctuated a lot, but the assessed value, which we tax based off of, has basically been a straight line with 4.1% average growth. You can go to the next slide. And you can see this is the amount of revenue that we've collected since 2000. There's only 1 year we had negative growth on that line, and that was in 2013 and 2014. And that was an outcome of the housing crisis, the Great Recession. And it took 6 years for that to work its way through the assessment models and delinquencies to pick up enough and things along those lines for us to actually see a revenue loss. And that was of roughly $1 million in a $250 million revenue stream. You can go next slide. So considering what is going on in downtown office space and significant concerns around that, I wanted to show how I'm accounting for potential revenue loss and how it shows up in the revenue assumptions and model. So if you were to just based on the historical assessed value growth, historical compression, and historical delinquency, at the end of year 5, we'll be collecting over $430 million in property tax revenue. My assumption, or what is much closer to the assumptions that I've built into the forecast last year, is assessed value growth of 2.5% a year, which is significantly lower. compression of 5% to 5.5%. So it grows as compression makes its way through, and delinquency of 5%, which we haven't seen these yet. The report that we got out was better than anticipated for this year, but that doesn't mean it's coming. It just takes a while to make its way through. And at the end of 5 years, if that red line scenario happened, we'd be collecting $35 million less a year. I also, I got tax lot level data from the county assessor and did a simulation of what would happen if real market values dropped by 50% for all commercial space in the central city. And the impact is not as dire as you would anticipate, largely because most of these buildings have a 40% AV to real market value level. The problem is roughly $3 million lost, which over time you'd also have slower assessed value growth and things like that. So that's not the end of the story. The problem is that's 50%. If you go to 70%, it becomes 10 million. And if you go to 75%, it's not a linear growth because the compression starts to push down on the assessed value once it drops far enough. And so that is the real concern. We, again, have time to adjust the forecast because of how slow, how the assessment models work. But at the same time, it's prudent to have kind of a reduced outlook in anticipation that we're going to see significant real market value loss for the central city. And you can go to the next slide, which you can probably barely see the yellow dotted line over the red line. That is what was in my adopted property tax forecast last year. So it is very similar to this alternative scenario. And the takeaway is that I have some pretty stark assumptions around property tax revenue growth in the baseline forecast. I am not likely to reduce it even further. I'll probably need to see, and the hope is that in 2 years I'll be revising this upwards. You can go to the next slide. So this is hopefully somewhat familiar. I showed it last year. This is the business license tax revenue we collect by week. And so you'll see most of it comes in post the April tax filing date. The last 2 fiscal years, we saw almost the exact same amount of business license tax revenue collected. Though, if you remember back to my April forecast of last year, what came in April wasn't necessarily reflective of underlying tax liability. It was a lot of unearned credits. And what that meant to me is that most corporations, large corporations, are extended filers. And so come November of this year, they'll have refunds, they'll have retaken unearned credits, and we'll see how much of it was like truly reflective of underlying tax liability. And so modeling this out at the end of last year, had an anticipation of how much revenue we would receive throughout the year. And basically the story is that we would have a weak fall and a weak spring leading up to April 15th as refunds are filed, as we kind of get closer to the true underlying tax liability for these corporations, and then a more normal April. A more typical April. And if you see the blue line that is added, that is the current revenue collection so far. So we are tracking even a little bit lower than my anticipation. This sort of revenue data is very choppy. And so I wouldn't make too much of any like short-term trends. But I think the underlying story is the bad news is there's no good news. Is that we don't have a surprise to the upside that we sometimes get with business license taxes. And so it unfortunately means I think I'm right that we're going to be collecting about $25 million less in business license tax revenue than last year. The good news is that this was in the forecast, and so it's not going to take additional reductions or anything along those lines. It just means that there's no relief on the business license tax side. You can go to the next slide. So I'm going to briefly touch on the other three general fund discretionary. Utility license franchise fees, for a decade, they were between 80 and $90 million. Last year, they broke past the $90 million threshold. Given private utility rate increases and anticipated increases, the outlook has improved. Transient lodging taxes, I already mentioned. Revenue growth is basically matching last year's, our revenue, how much we're taking in each month is almost exactly matching last year's. And not super unanticipated. It may be a little bit earlier than I would have liked in terms of how the slowdown. This is only 5% of our general fund revenue, but it is an important economic indicator. Again, we would like this to be showing better signs for what it means for other revenue sources. And yeah, state shared revenue. This is it's tied to liquor. It's very slow moving. It's very stable, and the outlook has not changed. And then briefly, we can go last slide, and then I'll stop talking. The forecasting work group. This is really formalizing what somewhat existed informally prior. And that is, we've contacted all the major fund managers and sat down and basically asked, what are your concerns? What revenue trends, how are you doing things? All the questions you would think. And even if we knew the answer, just make sure we knew the answer. What we found is that the concerns aren't really odd, with the notable exception of BDS. Revenue forecasting is not where the most of the discussion was. It was mostly focused on expense forecasting and the overhead model, interagency rates, inflation assumptions, things along those lines, personnel costs. And it makes sense because most of the revenue sources and the forecast for revenue sources around the city outside of BDS, the general fund, and maybe PSEF are very stable and predictable, and they haven't been very off of what they've done. That's not where they're looking for guidance. And so just noting that for when we go into the next session, next section, and they talk in more detail about some of these expense pressures. And with that, I'll take questions and discussion on this portion before I hand it off to the Public Works and BDS.
Commissioners, if I could, I'd just like to have Peter clarify something on the business license tax. Peter, can you talk a little bit about the composition of where we're getting our property taxes with? And secondly, the $25 million incentive that was done. I mean, the hope there was that we would save leases in the downtown area. So if you could comment on those, please.
Yeah, so I'll start with the downtown business incentive. The hope is that we save leases, but given that who pays the business license tax and where it's coming from, it's unlikely that those types of firms, the ones who mostly pay, are the ones who are going to be leasing downtown office space. And so again, like national large corporations and finance firms are the ones paying. And so the argument that was posed to me was not that we were doing this to raise revenue in the long run necessarily. It was that we were doing it to encourage a whole bunch of other downtown activity. And so I have no assumptions about revenue growth as a result of the downtown business incentive program. And I'm also assuming full usage of the downtown. So I assume that firms are going to take advantage of this. And so the full $25 million tax credit taken over 5 years. And then the other question about who pays.
Right. I think you already mentioned
Yeah.
that in your presentation.
I have follow-up questions on that. So when will we start to have visibility into utilization of the 25 million? And then I want to get back to your assumption about who's going to utilize it, because I'm not sure I followed the logic entirely there.
When we will see is it's going to be late. So we'll get our first indication at the end of next year because it's over tax years 23 and 24. Most corporations are extend filers, and so we won't really see until October, November of next year. And then for full, how much of the full, I would anticipate that year 2 has more utilization than year 1 because one of the reasons we did 2 years is because we heard from community that we just don't have enough time to react to year 1. And so if we're assuming that more utilization year 2, we won't have a full idea of how much this was taken up until the end of 2025.
And we really don't have any early indicators, right? I mean, is there?
I don't think so. And that kind of gets to your other question of who do we anticipate are the firms that use this? And it's really hard to say.
Yeah.
First of all, but the ones that seem applicable are the sort of not the 60% large corporations, but the 40% of 40,000 small businesses, accountants, doctors, financial firms that are located within, or real estate firms that are located within Portland that have high profit margins, but are smaller. And we don't get a ton of revenue from them. It is tied to where their location. And so again, the reason why the 60% wouldn't really matter is if a large corporation leaves the city, it has no impact on how much business license tax they're paying, assuming that people are still buying from that corporation, because it's allocated based on activity. And similar with financial firms. If a financial firm leaves the city, even if it's not a corporation, we could still be collecting significant business license tax. And so the ones that matter for leaving the city, the location matters, is probably some accountants, some doctors, some lawyers, things along those lines, where they go, their practice goes. But that is just not a hugely substantial portion of who's paying into the business license tax relative to the large corporations and financial firms.
Just one last question on that. Just so focusing on like a multinational that would be headquartered in the city of Portland. Just walk me through, because we kind of described the 60 and the 40, which I follow, but we don't have many, but if, someone who's truly a multinational headquartered in the city of Portland, they move out, what is the impact on our business tax revenue?
So it depends on the corporation type. Most of them, I'm going to assume, because it's a tech firm or a financial firm, where people spend money on that firm is not really tied to where their employees are. So it would have a limited impact. If it's a large retailer where the location is how much retail comes from that, goods store, then it's a different story. But even then, a lot of large multinational corporations are getting a disproportionate amount of their revenue from online, and so the impact is probably even still more muted in terms of the impacts of firms leaving the city.
And in terms of the incentive program, I think we'll know a lot more coming in January when we're actually allowing people to come and use that program. And that should give us a real good indicator of what we can expect over a 2-year period. And you all know this, but it's one thing about the downtown incentive in terms of the financial implications, but you did that for a whole lot of different reasons, and primarily keeping the downtown viable and keeping the downtown where people want to come in and that sort of thing. So I just wanted to clarify that as to why it was the primary issue in terms of the decision to do this.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Just a
Peter?
quick
Yes.
question. You probably all mentioned it, but I didn't catch it. On table 1 in the forecast, the ongoing fund set aside is 20 million per budget note. Can you just remind me what that budget note was?
Yeah, in the adopted 23 budget, it had me set aside $20 million and to put it into policy set-asides
Oh,
for
policy.
housing, 8 million for housing, 8 million for Prosper, and 4 million for Portland Harbor.
Thank you.
And those are all recurring funds.
But just to be clear on that, council will still have to act to allocate them to those bureaus' budgets before they can use it.
Yeah, okay.
Just a quick question, probably for our economist. Do you have any recommendations on the metrics that we should look at to evaluate the success of our downtown incentive program?
Utilization would be a big one. It is a difficult, it's always difficult to determine the economic, what is actually new. What wouldn't have happened anyways is always the question for any economic policy, and this is a particularly difficult one because we won't have a good answer from the businesses if they would have left barring this. The rationale makes sense. It basically covers the lease for a number of firms. But in terms of evaluating of if it is actually incentivizing people to stay, it's a hard question to answer.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Peter, for your usual presentation. That leaves me not sleeping at night. But thank you very much. I think now we are going to turn to hear from our BES, the Water Bureau, BDS, and Transportation on their financial situation. And in some cases, we'll be combining information in the slides that would be applicable to more than one organization. So I'm not clear about who is going to go first. Thank you very much.
Good morning, Mayor and Commissioners. Rebecca Esau, BDS Director. I'll be presenting information on BDS financial planning and our financial outlook. BDS has a robust financial planning process that is unique in the city. The Bureau developed this process because 98% of BDS revenues come from fees for services, so the Bureau is directly and closely tied to fluctuations in the construction industry. To manage and plan our finances with the goal of retaining the bulk of our experienced workforce, we have to monitor changes in the economic environment with an eye to what's on the horizon. We need to be quick and nimble in responding to changing conditions, to take early measures to manage our financial reserves prudently. The construction industry is extremely volatile, prone to large swings in activity, and sensitive to many macro and microeconomic factors. It's also the canary in the coal mine, so to speak, and it can be one of the first industries to indicate broader economic trouble ahead. To that end, we have a committee, the BDS Financial Advisory Committee, which we have convened every year since 2010 to help us understand the outlook for construction in Portland. This committee is focused largely on BDS revenue streams, but the information has implications for other bureaus. The meetings are well attended by our partners, PBOT, Water, Parks, BES, Fire, Housing Bureau, and BPS. The committee itself is comprised of local economists as well as experts and leaders in the development industry. Together, they have a strong and broad understanding of the overall economy and how micro and macroeconomic factors impact construction activity. Next slide, please. The forecasting and financial planning process is ongoing. We typically convene the BDS Financial Advisory Committee in November of each year. In that first meeting, we have an open-ended discussion with the economy, about the economy, construction activity, modeling, and anything that might have an impact on Bureau revenues. That November meeting plays an important role in informing our revenue projections, which we work on through December. We test past models for resiliency and develop many, sometimes more than 100 new models for our various revenue streams. We carefully analyze how all models perform, both in terms of statistical robustness and how they would have performed had they been used in the past. In January, only the best performing models are then brought forward to the Financial Advisory Committee for discussion, feedback, and critique, along with the growth rates those models produce. We make changes to the models based on the feedback and finalize our growth rates. Those growth rates form the foundation of our financial projections. We then go through a meticulous process of adjusting for known and expected large project activity to achieve our final revenue projections. We combine the revenue forecast with expenditure projections to develop the Bureau's 5-year financial plan. This plan projects cost recovery and reserve levels for each BDS program and the Bureau as a whole for 5 full fiscal years. The forecasting is iterative, which is what this slide is intended to illustrate, and we make adjustments throughout the year. In the spring, we incorporate any budget adjustments impacting spending levels to our financial plan and also make adjustments for changes in the economic outlook. In the summer, we're able to incorporate fiscal year-end revenue and expenditure data and account for changes in the economic outlook. Again, in the fall, we adjust for evolving economic outlook expectations as well as budget adjustments impacting expenditures. Next slide, please. In this slide, I'll give a brief overview of some of the many factors that influence Bureau revenues and expenditures. As I said earlier, BDS revenues are highly correlated with the construction industry, which is susceptible to large fluctuations and difficult to predict. We'll look at quantifiable economic data for our forecasting, like City of Portland population, incomes, housing affordability, rental prices, vacancy rates, etc. Interest rates are incredibly important, especially now as they impact the feasibility of development projects. There are also other factors that are more difficult to quantify in terms of their impact on demand for development. The public's perception, for example, of Portland as a place to live, work, visit, and build is one of those difficult to quantify factors. The complexity and cost of the city's development regulations and predictability of its development review process is another factor, as compared to other cities that investors may choose to invest in. Anticipating changes in development trends based on anticipated regulatory changes. For example, the governor's work with the Housing Production Advisory Council and changes that may come from the state and locally from those efforts. It's also important to distinguish between what may be going on in the metro area suburbs where land is cheaper and different regulations apply, and their image is different than the City of Portland compared to what we've seen in the past. Bureau expenditures are more straightforward. Personnel costs make up approximately 70% of the Bureau's expenditures. These costs are influenced by pay changes, PERS, and labor agreements. Materials and services inflation, both internal and external, also drive up costs. Finally, as regulations continue to increase in complexity, more staff time is needed per project. Complex regulations come at a cost to the development community, but also increase Bureau costs. Given how closely tied our work is to the construction industry, forecasting revenues has considerable risk and is prone to large swings. BDS is almost entirely reliant on fee revenues, so when construction is booming, our financial situation is strong and we set aside money to use during the downturns. Our main revenue generating fees are project valuation based, meaning the fees are a percentage of the project's valuation. The higher the construction project valuation, the more fee revenue BDS receives to fund its operations. This makes large commercial project activity a very important component to our forecast, as large projects represent an outsized portion of BDS revenue. The downside is that the timing and size of these large project activity is difficult to project. In part, these difficulties are driven largely due to macroeconomic factors out of the city's control. For example, interest rates are currently making large development projects not financially feasible for most developers. Next slide, please. I want to give a brief outlook for construction in Portland and how that relates to BDS. In the last month, we've met with several economists and industry experts on our financial advisory committee to hear their thoughts on the economic outlook. As you heard from Peter, it's not good, and we don't expect conditions to improve in the near future. In addition, it's not just the high interest rates that are contributing to the downturn. The other most recent factor is that the value of existing large buildings is plummeting, even those built fairly recently in the Pearl and elsewhere. Financial advisors are telling investors to dump their real estate from their investment portfolios. So there are fire sales going on of existing buildings, and you can buy a building at a fraction of what it would cost to construct a new one. So new construction doesn't pencil out, and we're not going to see much in the way of new commercial construction while this is still the case. If property values stay low, then property taxes will be reassessed, and revenue from that source will also be reduced, which would impact the general fund, as Peter was talking about. Additionally, as leases for existing office space expire and tenants choose to not renew those leases, we expect to see an increase in foreclosures of office buildings. BDS is planning for the downturn to last approximately 18 months before there's a substantial increase in construction activity. And there's no demand for new hotel or office space, obviously, and development of new multifamily apartment buildings is not expected due to high interest rates and those plummeting market values I just mentioned. So BDS has $37 million in its reserves, but because of the significant drop in fee revenue coming in, the monthly revenue is falling far short of covering our costs. After drawing an average of $1 million per month over the last fiscal year, since July of this year, we've been drawing approximately $3 million per month. This increased draw on the Bureau's reserves is alarming and not sustainable, and we've been taking early steps to reduce this excessive monthly draw on our reserves. We need to make our reserves last through the duration of the downturn and are currently implementing measures to reduce our expenditures to ensure this is possible, and this includes layoffs. These are difficult decisions that impact people's livelihoods. Also, reducing staffing levels can impact service levels, but workload is down, particularly for staff who review and inspect commercial development proposals. We're taking early measures now to reduce the drain on our reserves so they will get us through the next 18 months. The goal is to preserve the majority of the Bureau's staff, so we will be well positioned to deliver service when the demand picks up again. If we delay the smaller layoffs that are needed now to reduce the Bureau's expenditures, we would need to implement much more severe layoffs later when we run out of reserves while still in a downturn. Again, the goal is to adjust and reduce Bureau expenditures so that the financial reserves get the Bureau through the anticipated duration of the downturn while preserving as much of the workforce as possible. So we are here to support the recovery without the delays associated with trying to rebuild our workforce through recruitments, hiring, and training, which all take a long time. The Bureau has learned from previous experience that ongoing monitoring and early action to reduce expenditures is critical to avoid the more massive layoffs needed if the Bureau drains its financial reserves before the economic recovery, as the Bureau experienced in 2009. This devastated the Bureau's ability to deliver services when the recovery began. The Bureau had no financial ability to staff up as we saw the recovery begin because we didn't have the fee revenue yet. The Bureau relies on fees for service, so by the time we collected the fee revenue, the work was already in the door and had buried us. Once we had the fee revenue, then we needed to create the positions, then recruit, hire, and train employees. By that time, the Bureau was so understaffed and behind, it took years to dig out of that situation. As a city, we need to avoid a repeat of that situation. While some adjustments to our workforce are needed, we collectively need to find better ways to retain the majority of the trained, experienced development review and inspection staff through these economic fluctuations. I'll add that the City of Portland is one of the only cities I know that has a development agency with all of its eggs in one basket, totally reliant on fee revenue. A model that relies on two or more funding sources that are impacted at different times in these economic cycles would help smooth out some of that volatility. This isn't just about helping BDS, it's about the city's ability to deliver timely development services, which is critical to attracting investment and supporting Portland's economic recovery. I ask that you consider alternatives to the current model of total reliance on fee revenue. That concludes my presentation.
So
I had to get that in since I'm a short timer.
Well, your conclusion got right to one of my questions, just in the architecture of BDS budget. So highly fee dependent. You hedge the risk by adequately reserving as best you can. That's been the practice to date. But what prior, over the last decade, discussions have there been about shifting the architecture of your budget and being, frankly, you cut to the chase in your conclusion, but where I was going, I just,
I would strongly advocate for it. We have asked for general fund in the past and not received it, but I will continue to advocate till my last day that there be some general fund support for BDS to try to smooth out that volatility and not have all our eggs in that one basket.
and where I'm going with that, I'm sorry, I think the mayor has a hand raised as well. I was just finished my question, turn over to him, was that, construction industry is about as volatile as you can get. Over the long haul, there's ups and downs, and being so tied to that volatility is problematic, and particularly that we have to be out in front when the cycle shifts and be able to support it. And, there's not much construction going on right now, but whatever there is, we need to make sure it's flowing through, so we need people to process permits. So I guess it's just, my question, and maybe you have answer, maybe I'm talking to myself here, but the asking for general funds at the bad points, right? That's one exercise, but just really thinking over a 20-year period, what is the right way to think about BDS's budget that transcends a particular point in the cycle? Is, I guess that's really what I'm trying to get at, is what's the right way to think about it long term?
I don't have the answer to that question. I think there's a variety of different models we could explore, but happy to look into that and follow up.
And I do want to point out that they have maintained a fairly good reserve. So they did try to get protections, but, sometimes we don't know what the future is going to have, and that's one of these situations right now. So.
Mayor?
Yeah, first of all, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, good. And if my Wi-Fi is somewhat sketchy. First of all, Director Esau, thank you for your frankness. I had a thought and then I had a question. The thought is this: it's really important for all of us to understand historically that your bureau cut staffing during the last economic downturn. I think that was, maybe 8 years ago, 9 years ago, 10 years ago, somewhere in the past. And it took years for the Bureau to recover from that from a personnel perspective. In fact, I don't think you have recovered. And so some of that historical perspective, I think you should underscore for the council, just to let them know that if we do layoffs for this group of employees, they're highly technical, skilled labor, experience matters. It takes a long time to bring in new people. It's a hard position to recruit for, and it's a hard position to train. And so I think we just need to underscore that this Bureau is uniquely challenging when it comes to layoffs. The second part really is a question, and it gets to what Commissioner Gonzalez was talking about. You mentioned that other cities are funded differently, and I agree with you that multiple sources of funding is better than fewer sources of funding, but I'm not sure that I would see the general fund as being a stable source of funding. In fact, I would argue that the general fund tends to move somewhat in lockstep with the economy, which tends to move in lockstep with fees that you would collect from developers. And so I'm just wondering, as you go out, you talk to your counterparts around the country, what sources of revenues are they using to stabilize their development function?
The ones that I've talked to, they are using their city's general fund. And what we see is fee revenue is the first thing to be impacted, and there's a delayed response with impacts to general fund when there's a downturn. And Kyle, I don't know if this is Kyle O'Brien, our finance manager.
Yeah, thank you, Director. Thanks, Kyle.
There aren't too many other revenue sources, within the city. General fund would be the largest, most stable one. It does fluctuate, but not nearly to the degree that construction activity fluctuates. So, yes, while general fund isn't stable, as stable, it is more stable than fee revenue. It does fluctuate a little bit, but still, the way we're funded just creates so many problems when it comes down to, staffing, and it's a difficult predicament to be in, to have to look at cutting staff when construction activity drops off, when we know it's not going to last forever. We're looking at 18 months, but we can't support an 18-month draw at $3 million a month. We have to slow that so that when things pick up again, we can still have enough staff to provide services, but it's going to be a challenge, even so.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that at all. And yeah, thank you. And just a general comment to the budget staff. Excellent presentation up front. The one part of our structure that seems to be particularly volatile isn't just the revenue side, it's the cost side of the equation. And I hope at some point, as we're level setting here, we talk about the growth rate of our costs relative to the growth rate of our revenues. But thanks, Director Issa. I appreciate your presentation.
Thank you, Mayor. And you were spot on your earlier comment about how long it takes to fill these positions and recruit for these positions and the timing of that. If we start late, we are in competition with the private sector as well as other local jurisdictions, and making it even more difficult to recruit talented staff. Thank you.
Director Issa, I wanted to jump in a little bit to add more history. It was 2008 was the Great Recession.
Yes.
And that's when you saw it, yeah. And so we were here 2 years ago with some big differences. We had a healthier general fund, and we had ARPA dollars coming in. So we did preserve the positions, and we were hoping that conditions would also be more favorable. And I'm not talking just about things we can't control. I'm talking about the concerns that are causing businesses to leave, making developers more hesitant to develop in Portland. So we were hoping that that would have turned around more in 2 years, and that's where we're at. But I just want you to know that we did figure it out 2 years ago with some different conditions, and I know we'll work together to figure out how to make sure we don't have the devastation of 2008 again, because like everyone here today, you all have highly skilled employees, and they're really tough to not only recruit, but they're really takes time for them to get up to speed for that productivity. So this is something I hope that we all deliberate on with all of your presentation, I'm sure the ones to come. Thanks.
Thank you for that.
And if I could jump in here real quickly. First, I want to thank the director for the presentation. And as we go through this year's budget process, one of the things that I hope that we can do is to maybe do a budget note to take a closer look at how we manage the reserve fund. At this, we've had a remarkable 25 years in terms of real estate here in Portland. We've seen a lot of volatility. I think in the presentation today, we heard that there are over 100 models that BDS is putting together. So I don't know, you probably have a model that takes a look at how you manage the reserve fund, I would assume, if there are 100 of them out there. I'd love to make sure that we are looking real closely at that. It seems like we have some challenges in this space. You know, I do remember when I first came into council, we did find some dollars to support staff there, but I do wonder if we're looking at general funds dollars, if we should be spending these, if our goal should be to try to fill staff positions or basically maybe manage our reserve fund. So a small investment consistently over time when it looks like our reserve fund is not where it should be. And certainly the next time we are lucky enough to be in boom times, I sure hope that we invest robustly in that reserve fund. And that's all I have.
Commissioner, we do, as you know, have a policy for the general fund reserve fund, but given the times, it's always a good idea to review that. And I think we actually had a budget note to be doing that, not just for the general fund, but for the other funds as well.
Sure. Well, here I was thinking about specifically about the reserves over at BDS.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, great. Thank you.
May I? We have a policy at BDS to have a minimum reserve of 50% of our annual expenditures. In some programs, up to 75% just because of the volatile nature. That doesn't mean we can't drop below, and we are below 50% now. Depending on how long a downturn lasts, you're not going to be able to keep it, above 50% forever. But we did grow reserves to $92 million in 2018. So we've had a pretty robust reserve in the past over in 1 year's annual expenditures. And it's there to help us provide stability. And that's what it's doing now. When we're looking at reducing expenditures to last 18 months, it's very different than looking at expenditures to reach 100% cost recovery. We're still planning on drawing on our reserves for the next 18 months while we manage the reserve appropriately to get us through the downturn.
Great. Thank you. And actually, before we move on, if I can just do one more quick question / reality testing. I think BDS is working on the assumption that we'll be in a period of low permitting activity for about 18 months. I wanted to ask Peter if you have, that seems roughly consistent, or how does that prediction square up with your evaluation of when we might see building activity bounce back?
It's very in line with it, in part because I'm on the financial advisory committee, and I met with them a couple weeks ago, and I basically told them that.
All right, great.
Just want to round it out by just giving an appreciation to Rebecca and her team, because there were a lot of learnings from 2008, and so that has always been top of mind and presence of mind when making all of these challenging decisions, even up to now. And so you've been doing that early and often with a lot of pre-planning, a lot of discussion. So just want to share that and lift that up, that very much centering the staff work here, and that you're doing everything possible that you can and doing it very judiciously. So thank you.
Thank you.
And who's next?
I think I'm next. Good morning, Mayor, Commissioners. I am Gabe Selmer. I'm your Portland Water Bureau Director, and I have the honor of starting off the Public Works Service Area conversation. This is our first year as a service area in this configuration, and I will say that we're formalizing some of the practices that we have done over the years informally. Certainly the utilities have always worked very closely together, but we are using this opportunity to collaborate and to support each other in new ways. I think that also is very front and center when we talk about the risks and looking at the forecast, sharing our business strengths with each other. So I just want to thank this council for giving us that opportunity, maybe pushing us into this opportunity to have the service area approach and mindset. I think it's been really, really helpful, and we're just at the beginning. So just give sort of a high-level reminder about our service area responsibilities. These three bureaus provide essential community services, and particularly the utilities, although I think PBOT as well, are really driven by regulatory requirements. As you heard from BDS, these are increasingly more complex, and that complexity comes with cost. Really, regulations only go one direction, and for us, we really are seeing the cost to comply with those. PBOT as well is probably even more driven by maintenance and safety expectations, but I would say that the utilities are also very mindful of that, and that does drive our responsibilities. All three bureaus in the service area are certainly have older and expensive systems that we maintain, and the cost to do that so that we are not running to failure is, again, only goes up with the age of our infrastructure. Those cost and revenue pressures continue to grow for all of us. So just as a table setting for that, and go to the next slide. In terms of our forecast, so we budget 14 months out of the year. That used to be a funny joke that I said. Now that is really the actuality. We start before the current budget is done, so probably April, May. We are already planning for the next forecast. and the next rate model. What's in the forecast, we are looking at our long-term revenue. Mike Jordan, I stole this from him, used to say we are in the 100-year business. That is very true. So we are looking at that long-term revenue expenses so that we can smooth the cash and borrowing so that our customers don't receive sort of rate spikes every year. Our goal is to ensure adequate funding for the services and the facilities and the infrastructure that's needed to meet our community's present and also their future needs. And how we do that are that we make certain assumptions. I will share that the assumptions that we use in forecasting are generally provided to us by the city economist for inflation and cost escalation, by city debt management for bond rates and borrowing, for our capital programs, and this would apply to water and to BES, and by the Treasury, City Treasury on interest earnings for fund balance. So there's not any daylight there between the models and the assumptions that we all use. Those are all the same and pretty much dictated to us on from the city. The forecast that we, both BES and water use, we update those assumptions. Every year we update our capital and operating expenses and we update our revenue and demand estimates. I'll also say, you know, we are maybe a little bit unlike the general fund bureaus in that we have to develop our operating budgets in response to our capital budgets. It might be a little bit different. And we have significant asset maintenance responsibilities. I will also take this opportunity, just as we're kind of giving our frank discussion, that we really need a clear signal from this council, clear guidance on what rates are possible, what kinds of drivers this council is interested in pursuing, because we have to go back through these very large, complicated, long-standing budgets to make those rates and our expenses work out. So that's not something that we can do on a dime. I think we saw that last year, that it was really difficult to make those last-minute sort of pinpoint calculations after not having that direction until really the end. I'd also say, I think, very similar to all the bureaus, we need some good guidance and your best thinking on additional costs that might not be in our forecast and how we should plan to address those. So we can move to the next slide. When we talk about those rate drivers, I'll go over water and then I'll turn it to Don to go over BES. But for water, you can kind of think of our rates as split into thirds. We have a third that is of our rate that is dedicated to our capital program and debt service. So this is system replacement. It's not something that we have a whole lot of control over. These are projects and programs that are either already in the works or that we have already built and we have debt service on. We have another third of our rate drivers dedicated to the Bull Run treatment plants, so to that very large filtration facility and pipelines that we are building. Again, there's not a lot of room there. That's a project that council has already approved, and we are moving forward with that. We need the rates to support that. The last third is really to maintain our current service levels. And again, while we can decide what those service levels need to be in the context of everything that you're hearing today, a big part of that are the costs in labor, or the growth in labor costs, and inflation and other economic factors that you've heard. We can ask Peter what those are going to be, but we can't ask him to change them. So we don't have a lot of leeway or movement in that third either. So you can see from the slide what we've put is sort of a diffuse orange color at the top. So all of the things below that 8.1% rate increase line are the ones that I've said we don't have a lot of movement or ability to change. The ones that are not included in our forecast are above that line. So if we wanted to include those, we would have to move that 8.1 line, or we would have to cut things below that. I think that's the question I'm posing to council. And what we're talking about that is not included are costs from the city transition, which I know you've had a lot of discussion about, higher general fund overhead and other city services, and then higher cost of living. And as we get into additional discussions with our labor partners, what that looks like as well. So those are the things that we would have to consider. They're not currently included in our forecast. I'm going to turn it over to Don to go through a little bit more from the utilities, and then you'll hear directly from PBOT as well.
Thank you, Gabe. Good morning, Mayor. Good morning, Commissioners. Donnie Chiyama, the Director at the Bureau of Environmental Services. So before I speak to this graphic that is very similar to what Gabe mentioned, I just want to acknowledge that BES is responsible for $22.5 billion worth of assets. Gabe mentioned the tremendous responsibility we have in our portfolios. And over the last two years or so, we identified a $5 billion backlog in capital needs. So before these emerging circumstances that we're talking about today, BES was already looking at reinvesting in our priorities and changing our investment strategies, mainly focused on our treatment plants, our pump stations, our force mains, the stormwater system, and our facility upgrades. So having that kind of be in the background, knowing that we have been planning to make significant adjustments in our investment, when we look today at our forecast, our graphic is a little bit different. We have 6 years. The Water Bureau graphic had 5 years. We included in ours the current year, and it's not quite as neat and tidy as Water's. You can see that our capital program is more than half of our revenue, and then we separate out the labor costs, and then on top of that, our operating, regulatory compliance, and other obligations. We had projected 5.15 with that shift in our investment strategy, but as Gabe acknowledged last year, we decreased our rates to 4.7. So the asterisk has the same meaning here as it did in the Water Bureau slide, but we are projecting the need for a 5.15% increase over the next 4 years, and then we anticipate in the last year shown on this graphic, fiscal year 28-29, that we'll be able to go back down to a lower rate increase. Next slide. And this graphic shows the combined rates for both water and BES, water being on the top and BES on the bottom in the green, and the yellow line in the middle is the combined. The gray line in the middle of the slide separates historical rates. We have 6 years, a pattern of 6 years for our historical rates, and then 5 years projected into the future. And you can see how we anticipate rates going down in fiscal year 28-29 as a result of BES's decreases. Next slide. And want to acknowledge, again, Gabe mentioned last year the decrease in rates, what that meant for us. That was a $2 million ongoing reduction for the Water Bureau and a $5 million reduction for BES. That was very difficult to go through and comb through our operating to find those adjustments. Next slide. And so the next 3 slides I have here are, again, we're combining our content here, so this affects really all of the infrastructure, public works bureaus, but I'll start with internal risks and then move to external and then long-term risks. So in addition to the capital backlog that I mentioned, we are anticipating unexpected costs with charter changes and the new form of government. We were also notified last year by OMF that facilities maintenance was no longer going to be supported. We anticipate some significant IT system upgrades for our asset management. And then also, we have seen a pattern of labor agreements making a big impact, specifically CPPW, but also LIUNA and others in the past have impacted us. And these are all separate from the box here on the right that includes the things that we've been talking about that we are likely going to be merging and blending our financing and our budgets. The permitting space, the natural resources space, emergency management, security, communications, and then, of course, the interagency increases and the general overhead increases. So these are all internal to city government. So we're sitting as these utilities with these backlogs of capital investments, and then we're nested within city government, and we see these internal risks to our forecasted rates. And next, I'll turn next slide to our external risks. And that includes, and again, because of the size of our budget, the scale of these impacts are really significant. We're expecting higher than forecasted macroeconomic increases, including COLAs, inflation. We heard from BDS, and I know we'll hear from PBOT, the impact of construction and material costs on our large capital budgets. We're also, as has been noted several times, the environmental liabilities that all of us are facing, as well as climate and other environmental impacts. And this year we saw the Camp Creek fire. And Gabe, I don't know if you want to mention anything about that, but another impact to our rates.
Yeah, I'll just say that, again, no one expected the fire in the watershed, and while we were very lucky with the weather and the incredible response across the city and our local, state, and federal partners, what it has meant is an over-reliance than from what we expected on groundwater. And as you probably all know, groundwater takes pumping, so it takes electricity costs to get that water, whereas our water from the Bull Run, because of the foresight of people 100 years ago, comes to us by gravity. So just another sort of hidden cost there in terms of that electricity, more than $1 million a month that we're spending on that. So those hidden costs are everywhere.
Thank you, Gabe. And then just have one more slide and kind of wrapping up with the long-term risks. And I've really hit hard on the backlog of our capital replacement and the scale of that capital investment in aging systems. We know that we'll have new regulatory requirements. We've discussed the economic risks. We mentioned climate, and as was previously quoted, yes, we are in the 100-year business. And if we don't invest now, these costs are going to be carried over into future generations at much greater rates. So it's prudent for us to make good decisions now and to really steer these big ships that we're trying to steer in these very turbulent and complex waters. And we really are aiming to get direction and to get feedback as soon as possible so that we can understand what to expect and we can ensure a continuity of operations and look to continuous improvement. I'm really excited about working together in the public workspace, and I think that there's a lot that we can do. So the sooner we can kind of get our story straight about where we're heading, the sooner that the public works bureaus can work together to support each other. So thank you very much. I'll turn it over to Millicent.
Did we want to pause for questions for the directors, or do you want me to just keep going? Hasten on, okay. Thank you so much. Good morning, Mayor and Council. Again, Millicent Williams. I'm the Director of the Portland Bureau of Transportation, and I'm pleased to be able to share information about how we got to this point in terms of our forecast and our expected actions over the next several months. So in the slide that you see there, you'll see that PBOT's financial forecast follows the city budget process and is timed to ensure that we meet the requested budget due date at the end of January each year. We based our requested budget revenue forecast on the October State Highway Fund forecast from ODOT and an update from Eco Northwest on current parking meter transaction trends. The expense forecast is reliant on updated inflationary factors and the cost of personnel provided by the City Budget Office, and updated interagency agreements provided by the Office of Management and Finance. You can go to the next slide. Transfers from the State Highway Fund are our largest source of general transportation revenues. The State Highway Fund collects resources from three main sources: taxes on motor fuels, including gas tax and diesel tax, taxes on heavy trucks, including the weight mile tax and truck registrations, and driver and vehicle fees, including licenses and vehicle title and registration. Under the Oregon Constitution, State Highway Fund fees and taxes must be spent on roads, including bikeways and walkways within the right-of-way. State funds can be used for both construction projects and day-to-day maintenance and operations of roads.
These resources cannot be spent on transit service, so streetcar and aerial tram, policing activities, so parking enforcement, or maintenance of the harbor wall, a PBOT responsibility. State Highway Fund resources are allocated approximately 50% to the state, 30% to counties, and 20% to cities. The city's allocation is based on total population as compared to other Oregon cities. The county's allocation is based on the number of registered vehicles as compared to other Oregon counties. The city and county pool their resources together, deduct the maintenance and operations costs of the Willamette River bridges, approximately $6 million, and then split the remaining funding 80% to the city and 20% to the county. This split is based on the total number of center lane miles maintained by the city versus the county within the county limits. You can go to the next slide. Parking revenues constitute most of the remaining resources within the general transportation revenue pool. All parking meter revenues collected in the downtown district are considered discretionary and added to the general transportation revenue pool. The net revenues collected in other districts, Central East Side, Lloyd, Markham, and Northwest, are allocated 51% to the districts and 49% to the GTR pool. The parking districts each have a stakeholder advisory committee that is responsible for developing a list of transportation-related projects and programs to spend the 51% meter revenues on. Parking citations are issued by PBOT parking enforcement officers, but are adjudicated by the Parking citations are issued by PBOT parking enforcement officers, but are adjudicated by the Multnomah County court system. The courts have jurisdiction over judgments and collections and retain 50% of the citation revenues. The remaining revenues are transferred to PBOT's general transportation revenue pool. Area parking permits are charged within parking districts adjacent to meter districts. Some districts add a surcharge that can be used to fund transportation demand management programs within the district. The surcharge revenues are restricted to the parking district. Temporary street use permits are fees charged to rent the parking space for short-term uses such as moving or weddings and long-term uses such as construction activities. You can go to the next slide. As explained in the two prior slides, our GTR forecast consists of the 5 sources listed on this slide. The sources are ordered from largest to smallest in terms of revenues collected. The Oregon Department of Transportation provides forecast updates for State Highway Fund revenues. We tie our 5-year forecast to the numbers provided by ODOT. Starting in fiscal year 23-24, the on-street parking meter forecast was contracted out to Echo Northwest, and meter collections are forecasted by district, and revenues are split with all districts outside of the downtown district. Area parking permits are used to control parking in neighborhoods that border metered zones. There are no new parking districts forecasted, so changes in expected revenue are tied to fee increases in those parking districts only. Temporary street use permits are issued for rental of parking spaces for construction and other uses. The forecast for these permits is driven by development permit data provided by BDS and assumptions around market demand for short-term uses, such as one-day permits and wedding catering. Parking citation revenue is forecasted to match the expected rise and fall of meter parking district collections. You can go to the next slide. And I'm hastening through so that we can get to questions. The next few slides are going to dive into the specifics of our key revenue and expense drivers. The parking meter revenue forecast is the most volatile and has the highest likelihood for positive or negative changes based on the health of downtown businesses and return to in-person work. The graph shows the original parking meter forecast that was completed last November in green, and the updated forecast is shown in red. For the last couple of years, we've continued to project a return to pre-COVID parking meter revenues in future years. However, based on flat collections over the last 2 years, we've updated the forecast to be much more conservative regarding future growth. Meter revenues are projected to remain relatively flat throughout the forecast. The uptick in revenues shown between FY 23-24 and 24-25 highlights the change in forecasting methodology between PBOT projections and Echo Northwest projections. In fiscal year 23-24, as shown in the graph, it's based on the first 3 months of collections this fiscal year projected out for the rest of the year. The Echo Northwest projections show more recovery in this year, but based on current collections, we are showing a more conservative estimate. The Ohio Echo Northwest assumptions are shown in fiscal years 24, 25, and beyond. The current forecast projects meter revenues at about 73% of pre-COVID levels. In the absence of any real growth in the expected number of parking meter transactions, the only way to align these resources with expenditure trends is to index the parking meter rate to inflation. However, there are no parking meter increases currently projected in the 5-year forecast. Next slide. I'll now transition to a couple of slides that outline some expense pressures on our forecast. As has been mentioned by all of my colleagues, labor costs have consistently outpaced our other inflation factors. The graph shows the rise in personnel services expenditures over the last 4 years as columns and the reduction of the number of positions as the yellow line. Even though our position count has dropped from 1,069 to 1,044 since fiscal year 2021, our personnel services expenditures have increased 25%. And as an example, the most recent LIUNA contract negotiations account for $2.6 million of the $32.6 million shortfall that you know all too well about. Future biennial increases to the required employer contribution to PERS is also a major cost driver, as has been mentioned by my colleagues. Next slide. State Highway Fund revenues are controlled by the state legislature, so there is no control at the local level regarding rates and fees. Next slide.
It got a little out of order.
I think we're trying to catch up.
Okay, sorry. Maybe I should look up. Okay. Rates are not automatically indexed to inflation, and the last state funding package was approved in 2017. The graph shows the original State Highway Fund forecast that was completed last November in green and the updated forecast in red. Fuel taxes are projected to remain relatively flat over the life of the forecast, with a dip in revenues starting towards the end of the forecast period. This dip in revenues is a statewide issue as cars over time are becoming much more fuel efficient or fully electric. This is a positive for helping to achieve our carbon reduction goals, but it contributes to our revenue challenges. As has been said before, if we do our job well, we are essentially putting ourselves out of business. The legislature could address statewide impacts to transportation funding through various actions, including state-level gas tax increase indexed to inflation, increases to registration and other DMV fees, or shifts to a road user charge. However, changes to these state-controlled resources will not be known until the 2025 state legislative session or longer. There are no assumed rate increases on gas tax or other state highway fund revenues projected in the 5-year forecast. Next slide. That one. General fund overhead and OMF interagencies continue to be significant drivers of our expenditure forecast, again, as has been mentioned by my colleagues. Within the two graphs, you see the solid blue line showing the actual overhead and interagency charges to PBOT over the last 5 years. The dotted yellow line depicts what those charges should have been based off of, inflationary targets provided by the City Budget Office. As we build our forecasts, we do not account for any increases to general fund overhead or OMF interagencies above the inflationary targets. As you can see, over the last 5 years, increases above inflation have impacted our forecast to the tune of $11.1 million per year in ongoing costs. As Council approves increases to bureaus funded via these models, PBOT is required to reallocate funding that supports direct services to the public and our own internal support functions to these citywide administrative support functions. Next slide. The ADA curb ramp program that is required under the settlement agreement reached with the Civil Rights Education and Enforcement Center, which is also known as CREEK, is a significant cost driver within our forecast. This slide identifies both the changes in cost of the program from its inception in 2018 until now, and the changes in funding responsibility to meet the program's requirement. Over the first half of the settlement agreement, the funding split was moved from 47% general fund and 53% transportation revenues to 22% general fund and 78% transportation revenues. Original budget assumptions were based on current dollars and did not show inflationary increases across the terms of the agreement. It also did not include the actual ramp conditional assessments that were needed to estimate ramp costs. The original funding assessment called for a reconvening after the ramp conditional assessment was complete to update the budget and provide options for funding. As the budget assumptions were updated, general fund contributions were kept at the original funding amounts and did not increase to account for the updated ramp costs. PBOT has been able to fill the gaps in funding through additional allocations of GTR, capital project resources, the development permitting projects, but those resources are expected to decline, as we have all heard today, and in the second half of the settlement term leaves us with many questions. Ramp costs continue to increase and put pressure on our declining resources. In addition to the original funding plan, calls for an allocation of $1.8 million per year, or $12.3 million total from the Build Portland 2 program starting in fiscal year 24-25, as has been acknowledged today. Prior council actions have reallocated resources once planned for Build Portland 2 to other general fund needs. If funds are not reallocated in 24-25 and beyond for this original commitment, the delivery of the required ramps will be affected. I am almost done. I'll finish with a few other risks and liabilities in our forecast. This is not an exhaustive list. We've gone through a list with you all before, but the risks discussed by the city economist and water and BES are also applicable to us. Extreme inflation on material costs continues to be an issue. Increases above normal inflation are not accounted for in the forecast. Our forecast assumes 2% underspending across all programs. As we continue to cut, our confidence in underspending across programs decreases. 2% underspending will be difficult to accomplish after $32 million in cuts are implemented. There is a statewide risk that the STIF, or statewide transportation improvement funding, is not continued in future years. This $3 million of funding is currently paying for operations and maintenance of the streetcar system. Potential liabilities, including Portland Harbor site, a result of the Portland Harbor site, continue to be a concern. And we also have concerns about potential future lawsuits regarding ADA compliant sidewalks, inadequate street signage, and ADA compliant audible push buttons at crossings. In closing, it's safe to say that we are all aware of PBOT's financial situation. I hope that this presentation provides a little bit more context around the components of the forecast and opens some dialogue about how we can address these individual components. Thank you for your time.
Very quick question for the budgeting office. When we're talking about contingent liability, Superfund or other kind of environmental exposure, maybe I'll get to ADA in a second, but what is the current city policy for how we budget and approach those type of risk and liabilities when it may transcend one bureau, when it's going to impact potentially multiple bureaus? Again, Superfund's one obvious example. There's other stuff that's out there, and I'm just trying to figure out.
If it's something we know is happening in the future, our general policy would be to try to start building reserves to cover those expenditures when it's possible. And it varies with each fund in terms of how we manage our reserves in those areas. But that would be the first thing that we would do. In a case where we get blindsided, if you would, with not much notice, then we have to look at our existing resources and try to reallocate to cover that cost. And not just, if it's one time, that's great, but in many cases, it's not one time. It's going to go through, and the curb setting thing's a good example of that. That's not something that's going to stop anytime soon. We're going to keep doing that service over time. So I don't know if that answers your question. We will be making the rounds to council offices soon on a number of these issues to brief you on what we're doing currently to address some of these.
Well, and a granular part of my question is, when we anticipate multiple bureaus will be impacted by a liability, what's the starting point in how you approach that, allocation? Are we putting it on each bureau to reserve, or when do we consider maybe citywide,
Every fund has financial policies, including reserves. And it's not just building the reserves, it's what happens when you're withdrawing the reserves. Mm-hmm. But to be clear, we haven't had in a recent time fundamental things like are happening with PBOT and now with BDS in terms of their reserve capacities. So I think as the commissioner said, we probably need to look at our policies again going forward to see if things have changed enough that we need to maybe start thinking about more reserving. But in a situation like this, I think what you're hearing consistently here is everybody's got their financial issues around this table, and that includes the general fund too. And so normally, if we had a good year and we had some general fund recurring revenues or we had one-time revenues that we could allocate to help some of the other funds, we would try to do that. But that's not what the case is right now. So that leads to, at least in the general fund area, probably having a cutback situation and reallocating funds to meet priorities.
If I can jump in here, Commissioner, just to share kind of my lived experience in the public works portfolio. As we sort of saw today, in years past, the city lost a lawsuit about curb cuts or whatnot, and would feel, although that's a citywide liability, for kind of intuitive reasons, PBOT was kind of placed as at least the lead agency here, although I view that as being fundamentally a citywide obligation. And indeed, I think if you get down to the bottom of the legal stuff, that's kind of the way it will flow out, especially as you see that PBOT is broke. And we haven't spent a lot of time on this council talking about the Portland Harbor project, although it is, let's say, reaching maturity. BDS, or rather Environmental Services, has been sort of helping manage that project so far and helping build up a little bit of a reserve fund in this space. But I will tell you, the Portland Harbor project is, and the Superfund cleanup is way bigger than the Bureau of Environmental Services. This is truly a citywide obligation. I don't know how much, we probably don't have time today to get fully into it, but I'm sure in the coming months and years, this council will be spending a lot of time coming to terms with that.
And thank you, Commissioner. And we do have a work group on this particular area, and we will be making rounds to you to give you an update in the near future.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
And I think Peter wanted to add something. Excuse me.
The only thing to clarify to your original question is ultimately within the legal framework, council makes the decision of who holds the bill. But tends to be, and each project is specific, and Portland Harbor is its own unique thing. And it is likely the lawyers will make a recommendation in terms of who should be paying what allocation percentage. And again, I think more will be clear when we make the rounds.
And just not to be too, well, I'm being explicit. I guess one of the reasons we have legal constraints there is that potentially you're passing some on to rate payers versus general fund bureaus, and it's a factor here in what discretion council would have.
Yes.
Okay, got it. Makes sense. Thank you.
Okay. Should we continue?
Oh, I
right,
think the mayor.
Could I ask a question, Tim?
Yes.
Sorry, I was slow on the draw there. Just a couple of, first of all, I really want to thank leadership for the presentation we just had. I thought it was really good. It's informative, it's helpful, and yes, depressing. Couple of thoughts. Number one, going back to sort of my theory on the cost side of the equation, we're hearing a lot about the increased cost of personnel. Obviously, we're seeing some fairly high cost of living adjustments compared to what we've seen, at least in recent years. And I guess I have a couple of questions about this. As I look at this, all of the major bureaus are struggling with their current revenue structure, and we need to move to different revenue structures. And we're hearing that from the utilities, we're hearing that from PBOT. At a time when we're also spending a lot more than historically we spend in certain areas. We would not be having a difficult budget discussion if we did not have the tens of millions of dollars that we were expending on the homeless crisis in our city. And just the joint office is over 40 million. That's mostly general fund. And then of course, the Safe Rest Villages and the task sites, which I'm 1,000% supportive of because I think they will actually work to reduce the crisis, but they're expensive in the near term. Again, tens of millions of dollars to maintain that. And then, of course, all of these bureaus are utility bureaus, PBOT, and pretty much any other community-facing bureau is facing substantial new expenditures around livability, litter collection, abatement of environmental concerns. So we're spending a lot of money that historically we have not spent on the homeless crisis and some of its manifestations. Then on the public safety side of the equation, we all know the story well. We're spending tens of millions of dollars more than we historically would spend on public safety, particularly around policing and the Fire Bureau. We've already heard a presentation about some of the challenges they're experiencing around overtime. So I'm trying to figure out 2, 3, 4 years down the road, Tim, what is going to be our plan to stabilize the city's funding, starting now and moving through the next couple of budget cycles? What is the plan? And it can't just be, we need more general fund, because general fund isn't always there. And over my years in public office, I've seen the general fund wipe out multiple times at the county, at the city, elsewhere. And we cannot rely on the general fund, particularly during economically squirrely times like these, to bail us out. I just don't think it's a safe bet. It might bail us out, but it might also become more drag on our budgets going forward. We just don't know. So it seems to me one area of opportunity is going back to the consolidated enterprise and speeding up the budget work around the consolidated enterprise. We don't need dozens of communication specialists spread throughout 20-something bureaus. That is just not a good use of our resources if we're going towards a city manager form of government. And I'm sure I could think of other examples, and you could all think of other examples of where we could economize maybe as soon as this year, if we could at least start centralizing some of the core functions that are currently dispersed throughout all of these different bureaus. I had a question when it came to the utility bureaus, and you put a good warning in front of the council. You said you need to know, number one, are there going to be additional expenditures that are unanticipated? Alternatively, what is your guidance going to be on utility rates? I just want to, and I get that, it makes perfect sense, but I want to make sure that what you need is coordinated with the timeline we currently have for the budget process. Are they aligned? In other words, if we go through the budget process as Tim has laid it out with the schedule that he and his team have put together, are you going to have the answers to the questions you need by the time you need the answers to those questions? Are we in alignment with the budget process as it's currently calendared?
Right, and Mayor, I don't mean to be flippant when I say this, but some of it depends on what the answer is. If the answer is sort of what we have built in and there's no surprises, then yes. To the extent that that we're far off from that, then that will be difficult. But that would be difficult in any situation because, as I said, we start our process so early and so far before the rest of the city. I think that we are making strides this year. This is the first year I've seen that alignment start to move in the right directions. I think it's been sort of parallel lines, and now we're heading towards each other. So I think we're moving in the right direction. I think time will tell how far off we are.
Okay, so and that's fair. And believe me, at this point in my life, nothing comes across as flippant anymore. Just can you make sure that you are vocal and clear with both the budget office and with council if you feel that something is going sideways and you feel you are not being heard, or there's information we need to provide as a council and we're not, because we have a lot of balls in the air and we don't always see one falling to the side. So if you could just be on top of that for us, I'd appreciate it. I guess I have a follow-up question, which is, are you working closely now with the budget office in the development of this budget? If I seek my guidance from the budget office, are they going to reflect accurately your needs?
Yes, I think we are
Okay.
closer than we have ever been. And I don't know that, I would say a week, but probably more like a day goes by before we were in contact. So
Okay.
we're tracking very closely.
I figured as much. I just wanted to make sure, and I'm really glad to hear that, both in terms of your bureau's collective leadership as well as the budget office. Tim, thank you. I appreciate hearing that very much. Last but not least, we heard in our first presentation this morning a lot about the financial uncertainty created by the reputational damage that the city is currently experiencing. And I won't go off on my editorial about reputational damage, but it's the reputational damage is real. Whether the problems actually rise to the level that is regularly being broadcast to the entire world, that's a subject for a different debate on a different day. But the reputational damage is real and it's significant. And it is having an impact on our ability to fund basic services. And so I guess my question, particularly around things like parking meter rates or water rates, sewer rates, do we have some means of measuring what incremental changes in water rates might lead to significant consternation on the part of the public we serve? I assume we do, not only through the oversight committees that you all have, but are we actually measuring customer sentiment here? Are we in tune with our customers?
I think we are, and Mayor, I think we have another tool in the toolbox for this as well, which is bond counsel and debt management services. Because when we go out for these bond ratings, part of that reputation that you talked about absolutely goes into factor what we can borrow and at what rate we can borrow. And so that is, I think, the best thing we can do for our customers is to keep those ratings high, both for the utilities, but also for the city. And those are more and more intertwined as we go forward, so that we have those that good reputation that absolutely transfers into low borrowing costs.
Okay, and then
Mayor, if I may.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
I just wanted to mention that PBOT has gone to community to ask their sentiments around, their attitudes around what's happening overall in the city, their appetite for potentially renewing the gas tax, the appetite for other options, and they've shared with us, quite frankly, their concerns through the results of those polls, both ones that you all have seen before, and we've done a more recent one with some top-line data that is really pointing us in a direction that lets us know that unless people see a difference in our ability to provide the level of service that they're expecting, there is a lack of willingness to bring more to the table per household or per business. There's a real sense that any future investment must be clearly articulated in terms of how it will be used. And if we're not able to show the benefit of that future potential investment, then there would be a greater degree of dissatisfaction.
Yeah, and thank you for that, Director, and that makes sense. And in your world, the one that always I find challenging to gauge is small business owners and operators telling us to eliminate parking meter fees altogether to encourage more activity in our downtown core as well as our neighborhood business districts. But you have to put that up against the ability of PBOT to provide basic services, including basic maintenance. And so that's why I'm asking if we have measured with any degree of accuracy what our customers are saying. And I'm pleased to hear it sound like you're saying, yeah, that's the case.
And I just wanted to share, just as an unintended consequence of potentially removing any fees to parking, aside from that having a significant impact on our budget, it would essentially create an opportunity for anyone to bring any vehicle and park anywhere for any period of time without any regulation and any ability for us to effectively enforce. And so as we're having that conversation, while we're certainly open to entertaining any ways that we as an organization can come to the table to be supportive of especially revitalization in the downtown core, we do have to make sure that we're doing so viewing the world through the lens of what potential reductions in that enforcement or regulation activity could have as an unintended consequence. As you know, we all struggle right now with maintaining the livability that people are hoping for in their communities, especially downtown. And so doing something like that, while I understand, would have an effect, a net effect that I think people would be far less than satisfied with.
Okay, thank you. And Tim, could I just ask you one more question? And it's on the debt side of the equation. It's not bureau specific. When we had low interest rates, did we have an opportunity to seek any kind of revolving loan financing or lock in lower rates?
The debt management team, and I think the person in charge of the debt is here. They are always looking at interest rate changes and that sort of thing, and where it's possible, given the terms of our lending, if we're having lower interest rates, we do try to refinance existing debt going forward.
Can we create a pool though? If we, yeah, and this is not the time to do it, obviously, with a higher interest rate environment, but if we find ourselves 2 years, 3 years from now, again, in a low interest rate environment, could it potentially make sense to seek an ongoing revolving loan?
I think there would be ways to do that. And I can't answer the question specifically today, but I have had experience in the past where we've done things like that in the city.
I wish, during this conversation today, I kept thinking, man, if only we had, 3% financing right now locked in, we could actually fund some of these gaps with that at 3%. It would be an absolute steal.
Well, and in terms of the utilities, that'd be a perfect time for them to go to the market to get debt going forward.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I'm done. Thanks, everybody.
Tim, I had a very fast question for the mayor, but before I just commentary, I continue to be very supportive of indexing parking in the city. I just think we've got to get to that point where I know that's a political hurdle with the business community, but I'll go help you fight that fight, because just to get certainty in that area, this game we've been playing for the last decade doesn't make any sense in parking. And but my question back to you, Mayor, on your first point, when you think about consolidating positions and the opportunity we have right now, given where we know we're going by January 1, 2025, how would you, totally supportive. I mean, I'm certainly seeing in my bureaus a number of opportunities for consolidating positions for certain functions. How would you right now, off the cuff, envision we go about that work? Do we bring in an outside consultant to kind of evaluate certain functions? Do we initiate that? Certainly, Jordan's team can have an instrumental role there. I was just curious, off the cuff.
Yeah, so I would bypass the overpriced consultants.
I'm shocked by that answer.
I'm getting sick of consultants, to be perfectly honest with you. We've got really good bureau directors. They know more about their bureaus than outside consultants possibly could. We wouldn't have to bring them up to speed. And I'd really like to hear some of their thoughts. And I used the example of comms just because I heard the other day we have something like 44 people who are identified as professional communications experts spread out across our bureaus. And I just know that's not the most cost-effective way that we could be communicating with the public. There are probably better ways. And I'm guessing that there are also back office operations and services and misaligned systems, different technology platforms, things that if they were brought together, they could increase, not only our cost effectiveness, but maybe improve customer service as well. And that's, that's probably not a satisfactory answer for the long term, but let me chew on this and let's get back together and talk about it.
Sounds good.
And the only thing I would add to that, we are moving towards this service area budgeting going forward. And I think some of the efficiencies you've been talking about, that'd be a good place to be looking at that. And CBO would be prepared to assist in analyzing those types of things where needed.
Let's continue that dialogue for sure in this cycle.
That brings us to the last part, being concerned about the time here, where we wanted to go through an overview of some of these expenditure pressures. The mayor just went through a couple of those. Next slide, please. And you've seen these before. PBOT's deficit situation. We just got a good overview on that. The rates with the utilities, we've gotten a good overview of that today. BDS's situation, up to date on that. Charter transition costs, we just had a work session and a council session to pass the organizational chart. So I'm not going to go into any more details on that today. That'll be an ongoing discussion. Legal liability, some we talked about today, the harbor thing. That's something I think we will come to you individually in the near future to discuss some of these issues. So what we wanted to focus on today were the personnel costs, which has come up many times today. And we also want to talk about the fiscal cliff, which also came up today. So what I'd like to do is turn this over to Ruth, because I think we have some charts that might be of interest to you in these areas.
Okay, and I'll be quick because I know we're at time right now. But I just thought, we thought this would be a helpful chart. This is citywide staffing costs over time that in inflation adjusted in 21-22 dollars. So this is 11 years going back to 2011-12. And you can see the green line is the number of FTE that are filled and non-casual, meaning so none of the seasonal employees. And the blue bars are the inflation adjusted costs over time. So you can see how both have gone up. Now there's a lot going on in here, and this would take a lot more to fully unpack for you what are the drivers in terms of our costs. But you're seeing, increased costs both for the number of staff, but then also the blue bars went up 20%. That is above inflation over that period of time. So again, that is in part because of the number of staff going up, but it's also because of a mix of things, right? The labor costs from contracts, but then also, there's the effect of what classifications people are in, and then the pay ranges for those classifications. All of that's coming together here. But this kind of helps to explain some of the things you've seen today. Some of these are in the bureaus that presented today about their labor costs, but they also help to explain why IA and overhead rates have gone up, which is a big pressure for the bureaus that presented today. And then also a big portion of this is in public safety, which is we have some information on in the next couple of slides. So you can go to the next slide. So this, again, is, given the time we have, I think it would be better to unpack this in a separate work session or in conversation. But, I think there's quite a bit of that's been driving increased costs in our emergency response bureaus, in particularly those with 24/7 operations, so PPB, fire, and BOEC. One of the things you saw on the previous slide, which you don't have to scroll back to right now, but is that we lost a lot of folks during the pandemic, and a lot of that is in the public safety bureaus. And given the long lead time for training folks in those bureaus, you run into a situation where we just have fewer filled positions, and that's what's going on. Now that creates a problem in 24/7 operations because you have to backfill to meet minimum staffing levels. And in order to do that, we have an increased reliance on overtime. There's a lot of variables in these equations, and they're slightly different for each of the public safety bureaus, so we won't go into a ton of detail here today. But just to kind of highlight some of the key drivers here for our public safety bureaus, which again is 2/3 of our general fund dollars is for public safety bureaus, which are mostly staffing costs. There are a couple other variables we just wanted to point out in addition to the use of overtime. There's retirements and payouts as a result of retirements. We talked a bit about this in the fall bump because there are two what are called 27 pay period look backs this year, which basically makes it more financially attractive to retire. And so there's a significant liability. There's a slide in here that I'm probably not going to go through because of time, just about the total liability to the general fund for public safety retirement payouts. Paid leave Oregon is another, and I think this is a good place to just note that leaves of all kinds also impact the use of overtime, and that's a pretty significant driver of the use of overtime. So I think I'll probably just leave it there on the public safety side. There are a couple of slides in your decks around kind of where we are on PPB and fire right now based on where we are in the fiscal year, but we're only looking at 5 or 6 pay periods out of the year, and so we're not, a lot of this is subject to change, but safe to say we still expect this fiscal year, and that is why we set aside money in the fall bump, to more or less be on trend with last fiscal year. Some slight differences depending on which bureau you're looking at, and we can happy to dive into that more in a separate setting. And then this is just the last slide, is on the fiscal cliff. We've talked about this a lot for the past few years, and this kind of underscores one of the mayor's comments, right, about housing and homelessness. I know the text is very small, I apologize. These are programs that we have funded, that are funded in the 23-24 adopted budget, that have more than $500,000 of one-time funding. And the blue part of the bar is ongoing funding, and the orange is one-time funding. So you can see there's quite a few programs that are largely or entirely one-time funded. Now, we don't know exactly what the ongoing sort of liability or need would be to continue all of these programs. That's not really what's on this chart, but the total amount of one-time funding on this chart is $90 million.
How much again?
Sorry?
Could you repeat that number?
$90 million.
90?
90,
million?
yes, is the total. Now, that is not to say we need $90 million of ongoing in order to do all of this. That's not the conclusion, but it's just to highlight the scale of the problem. There's quite a bit of stuff out there. And as the mayor pointed out, a lot of this is stuff we've added in recent years, and a lot of it is related to homelessness. So I'll just sort of leave that there, but to note, the general fund does not lack for problems of its own in terms of expenditure pressures.
We're spending energy to analyze those funds to see which ones will actually maybe end because they were one-time funded, and we can do that. And also looking at those that might need to continue, because that'll come into the mix as we balance the general fund or even other funds that have got those one-time resources. So I just wanted you to know that we're continuing to do analysis on this.
Can I ask a quick question? I know we're over time, but in that last chart, let's just focus in on the one-time. How much in one-time expenditures are up there on that chart if we were to add those orange bars up?
That's the $90 million.
That's the 90
number.
million. And can you remind us again how much one-time money we expect to have in next year's budget?
0.
Okay.
Pending the next forecast.
Yeah.
I think we will call it quits at this time, given the timing, but if you have any further questions, please feel free to talk to us or let us know, and we'll come over. All of us would be available. And I do want to thank our directors and particularly our staff that have been working with Peter for quite a while here, and just appreciate the ability to be sitting at the same table together talking about very common issues and some uncommon issues that we're sharing. And I think it gives the council a better feel for how we're looking overall as a city and financially. So thank you for your work on it.
And then just a quick plug for council for next Tuesday. We'll be here on the 14th. That Tuesday, we're talking about council budget priorities. As Tim mentioned at the start, we've sent a survey to each of your offices to complete. I haven't actually checked how many responses we've gotten so far, but we're expecting 5. And so we were hoping to get that back by the end of the day today. So let us know if you have any questions on that.
Thank you very much, council members. Mr. Mayor,
right.
thank you.
Yep, thanks, everybody. We are adjourned.